Did you do it? Are you going to go live? Are you live, JD?
We're live.
Are you live?
Stop talking about all those people we were talking about. Hey,
well, we already lost a bunch of people on Twitter Spaces, so if
Yeah,
you should be back in, I'm sorry.
they thought we weren't talking. It's my fault. I was late. Apologies. But welcome back to another episode of Go FUD Yourself. Today is Kiara's favorite day, Crypto Arms Race.
It is my favorite day. Okay, before we even get started, I've got to talk about some stuff that isn't exactly crypto, but it is going to highlight why we have all the news that we have today.
Trump.
Which obviously it's Trump. No, it's BRICS. BRICS is having their summit in South Africa, and obviously Putin couldn't travel because war crime. So he's attending virtually, which is kind of wild in itself. But they just announced, I think this morning, or maybe it was late last night, that they have new people that they've allowed to join BRICS, new countries that they've allowed to join BRICS, which includes the UAE, Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia. Pretty big deal because there were over 19 applications, and those are the only ones that they are allowing to enter BRICS as of January 1st, 2024. And the reason that I'm like, we have to talk about this is, one, they're a consensus-based organization. So essentially, no matter what they decide, they're all going to do. And that's part of why we talk about China versus Russia CBDCs a lot. But the other thing that's intriguing is most of the other news I could find internationally about crypto is about those nations that are about to be joining. So just kind of interesting. I don't want to create a bunch of FUD about BRICS, but I do think it's important to consider how this impacts our news and the type of information that we're consuming.
Yeah, I mean, the PR machine gets spun up too. Like these countries were catapulted into the news, and all of a sudden, reporters are looking for whatever they can in these countries just to keep the momentum going.
Around the world today, we're doing LATAM first. We got to do Brazil, Argentina. And then we have quite a bit of news actually out of the UAE and China. Oh my goodness, China, Hong Kong is a bit wild. We've got to talk about Nigeria, even though they're not joining BRICS. This is like the one exception to what I had already stated. And then if we have time, we'll talk about the colonies, because the UK and Australia have like small updates, but they're not as exciting.
The colonies. Awesome. All right. Just a quick reminder, we're a live show Monday to Friday. As you can tell by our late starts occasionally, and or some of our random
yelling about Trump
or technical issues. We're a live show Monday to Friday on all the major venues, soon to have RSS feeds also, which is really exciting. And yeah, like, share, subscribe, help us get the word out. I can't think of anything else we got to say before the video.
That's it. We gotta do it.
Yeah.
Go.
Just gotta change my sound. Hold on. All right, let's go. All right, we're back. Where we start?
Are you ready? You want to start in LATAM?
Oh, I'm ready. Yeah, I feel like a sunny vacation from my sunny life.
God. So in September of 2022, this incredible company, I believe they're pronounced Crecy, C-R-E-C-Y, started in Mexico. And they basically had an ETH-backed MasterCard. And they have changed how they're operating. They have expanded across LATAM now, Argentina and Brazil specifically. And local fiat currencies, they've cut out the middleman. So even though it was ETH backed before, you now can load Mexican pesos on and then pay for things in ETH, or vice versa. So you don't actually have to be on-ramping and off-ramping your crypto in a tertiary way. It happens directly on your credit card. And I think that's way cool.
Super cool. Yeah. What I love about this, and this isn't super novel, but it's interesting that it's, these are starting to really pick up some momentum. I think with some regulatory clarity, this will become a lot more prevalent, because one of the obvious challenges to crypto adoption and utility right now is the point of sale support is quite low. There's some
good way to put that.
Yeah, there's BitPay and there's other places, MoonPay, there's other places that are allowing this type of activity, but something as broad as a Visa or MasterCard that will use crypto to make payments is pretty interesting, because that, especially if it takes ETH, because ETH is such a common and readily available and relatively stable asset, all things considered, relative to so many of the other assets. This is really exciting, I think. I mean, we're going to need to see more of this, where people can use their crypto assets without being hosed by all the fees and the banking problems getting assets in and out. One of the other challenges is if you take enough crypto out to your bank account, your bank flags everything. And I'm constantly getting calls having to explain that I'm not investing other people's money and that I'm not an investment advisor without a license and that I'm not acting as a broker. It's a huge thing. It happens like once every probably 6 weeks. I get like a letter in the mail. If you don't phone us and explain this, your account's going to be suspended. And on the bright side, once you explain it, they're pretty good so far. So
yeah, maybe this is a way to avoid the travel rule also.
I suppose, yeah, it could be. I'm sure that when regulation comes in,
but still,
point of sale transactions will probably be.
Now, competitively, Binance Pay is also launching in Brazil. So, well, you have ETH on one credit card. You also can pay with Binance Pay if you travel around a little bit. I thought that was kind of interesting to have them launch in the same week. But it's actually the way that retail will be able to accept crypto payments, have it be processed quickly. It's not the way, it's a way that they can do that. And they've selected Binance Pay. Fascinating. I love following Binance around the world. I feel like every month I should do like a Binance wrap up or something.
A whole episode just on it. This is weird. Like Binance and Brazil have been a bit of an enigma. Like Binance was big in Brazil, then all of a sudden Binance was big in Brazil. And then Binance was allowed in Brazil again. And then off-ramps were canceled, on and off-ramps were canceled to Binance. And then you could not use reals on Binance anymore. They stopped that nonsense. It sounds like because Brazil's leaning into crypto adoption so heavily, it sounds like at least one large enough jurisdiction is starting to, hold hands with Binance a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I suppose, for the sake of the space, Binance failing miserably would be a big problem. So hopefully this is a sign of some jurisdictions that are going to welcome Binance that are big enough to matter. And so this is great.
I also think Binance Pay is just kind of a cool product, genuinely. Like they have over 70 crypto payments supported now. That's a huge, or tokens, I guess, supported. That's a huge number to support. Like, I would expect a payment solution to offer like top 5, Bitcoin, ETH, that kind of thing. But they're like, yeah, just go for it. Just 70. Let's just keep adding to the list. And I love that because then you can pay in whatever you want. They'll take your money. They don't care.
Yeah. The other cool thing is you can set liquidation preference. I'm not sure if you still can. You could at one time. I'm not able to use Binance Pay, obviously, because I live in the US. But you used to be able to set liquidation preference. So if you were to spend $1,000 on your card, which assets would be liquidated first? And if those assets run out, then what's next? Which is kind of cool because then you can say, maybe I've got a bunch of stables that I'll use first, but to make sure I don't get a non-sufficient funds response, it will use ETH or Bitcoin or whatever. My only concern with the Binance Pay thing is you just have to trust Binance.
Okay.
So I mean, do some research, make sure you understand. But this is a pretty cool development, I think, in Brazil, and I suspect it's going to be monitored heavily. So probably something that.
I think those two statements or these two stories are also very interesting because they're retail based. And so especially when we think of Brazil as in BRICS, we're looking at moving away from crypto as an institutional space only and how they're actually going to serve peer-to-peer and retail uses. That's kind of cool. And we also see a really big push for that in Argentina. We talked about this, I believe, last week. But the person that we thought
just wait. I have 2 really cool points from the Binance thing. I've been waiting patiently.
What? You were talking for so long.
I know. But what's really interesting is Deloitte did a study that shows that 75% of US businesses plan to accept crypto payments by the end of 23, which is kind of crazy. Like that's a huge swath of retailers. Now, if everything happens to be on credit cards, that's pretty cool because that makes it really easy to adopt crypto payments. So we'll have to see what that actually means. I mean, Ripple's been trying to make a point of sale structure for years. And if they can get themselves out from under the SEC's thumb, then I think they have a good chance of doing something cool also. But we'll see. I know PayPal, one of the old executives from PayPal is building a really cool payment structure on Lightning Network. Point of sale structure, which is really cool. Anyways, I don't want to spend all day talking about this.
You know what else makes it really easy?
What?
To adopt is when you vote in a president who really, really likes crypto.
Damn you! That's 2 transitions when I wasn't done. But that's okay. We can move on.
No, go ahead. I just did that to be a dick.
I was just gonna say. I mean, the Binance Pay has done a ton of volume too. Like they've done almost 100 billion in
That's wild, actually.
in transactions. Like that's a lot. Which leads me to believe, of course, they've ironed out some of the kinks, generally speaking, to the payment structures. I mean, it's been around for a minute, which is obviously important. So, okay, fine. Let's fly over to Argentina.
Finally, we can talk about Argentina. So I think that this is really interesting, mostly because of the way that the news is framing this. So basically, their candidate, Javier Milei, has won the primary.
Oh my God, did you butcher that?
I know, it was really painful.
Okay, go ahead.
How is it? How do you say his name?
No, we're just going to leave it like that. It's going to forever live on the record that you said
well,
it.
I mean, it's already on the record that I don't know how to pronounce it, but maybe if we can correct it, that would be cool.
No, let's leave it.
Cool. Anyway, this dude, he won the primaries. That's exciting. What I thought was really interesting about this is last week, JD, you and I talked about it, and we said he's probably going to win. But all of the media outlets that we have in English are saying the surprising win. And I'm like, was it surprising? Like there's economic turmoil. People are generally unhappy. They're looking for change. They're looking for autonomy. They're looking for the government to be accountable for what they're doing, but mostly leave them alone. Really weird that their libertarian candidate won the primaries.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a movement globally. Like we're seeing these populist candidates, not necessarily libertarian, but populist candidates, outsiders all over the place. We saw it in France. We're seeing that with, I mean, we saw that obviously with Trump, but we're seeing it with Vivek and RFK. In some ways, RFK is a little bit career political, but not an establishment political person. So anyways, this is happening a lot globally, where I think that populations are saying, wait a second, like some of this crap is just getting out of control. And especially when you look at the economy, like the media talks a lot about social structures and social issues and all this other nonsense. But what most citizens care about, actually, most of that fluff doesn't really impact you that much day to day. But what citizens do care about is cost of living, inflation, taxation, and general economic momentum. And what we're seeing globally is there's a lot of governments that have made, consistently poor decisions. And both Republicans and Democrats in the US are guilty of it. And both sides of the government are guilty in many places, which is why these populist candidates are starting to crop up. So anyways, I love to see this because not only is this, interesting, and hopefully they can turn the tide in Argentina because their economy has just been pummeled for,
it's like brutal.
Like it's very difficult for the people that live there. And we have some good friends that live there, and there's a big crypto community there. All of that to say, I think this is great. It's just the primaries. We still have the actual election, but
I know, but it's so cool.
This guy is a huge Bitcoin maxi also for obvious reasons. Javier Milei.
Thank you. I thought I said Milei. You said that there's a big crypto community there. Big deal. It was Crypto Latin Fest 2023.
That was a sneaky way to get me to pronounce it. Good job.
I know. Thank you. I'm so good. I thought it was clear. I thought it was like an obvious. I thought you were going to make fun of me some more. I can speak other languages, but they're all Germanic. So I forgot that the J is an H. All right.
All good.
How embarrassing. I'm so just lacking globalization.
Lacking culture, really. That's why we do this. That's why we do this crypto arms race, so we can fly around the world to get a little culture into Kara's life.
Well, we should learn more about what's going on in the world other than just talking about Trump forever. All right, so they had the Crypto Fest in Colombia. This was a super big deal because there was also an earthquake and people continued to attend.
It wasn't like a tiny earthquake either. Like
no.
It was a pretty decent sized earthquake. I saw a number somewhere on.
I don't remember offhand, but it was pretty big. It was pretty decent. People left a little bit, but they mostly came back, and they continued to run all of their regular programming. People continued to exhibit. I don't have a lot else to say about it. I just thought it was fascinating that people were so bullish on this festival that even an earthquake couldn't stop them. They were crypto overcomes natural disasters in more ways than one. It's not just Red Cross now. It's also that we'll go to a conference despite a natural disaster.
Yeah, this is kind of cool. It's gaining some traction. They had double the amount of people attend this year from last year, and they've already announced the next one for 24 being in Honduras. So this is kind of interesting. I like to see some of these like kind of regional activations like this. Like generally we see a lot of conferences in America, a lot of conferences in Western Europe, specifically France, and the occasional other one in Europe, Barcelona. There's a lot of stuff in Spain. There's a lot of stuff in Lisbon. But we don't see a lot of like fairly well trafficked conferences in Africa as an example, Central and South America as other examples, Southeast Asia. I mean, we see a lot of stuff in Singapore and starting to be more in Hong Kong, but there's a lot of areas of the world that
I've got to be super funny about this really quick. Just bear with me here. Okay, so when we went to Avalanche Barcelona, I met a variety of people who were very afraid about security. They didn't want to be traveling and be identified as people who held crypto. They didn't want to be wearing the t-shirts or the hoodies. I said hello to a couple of them in public because they had hoodies on where I recognized the logo, and it was like, hey, we've actually worked together. And they were mortified that they could be identified, and they like stripped themselves of all the logos and stuff. Anyways, fascinating to me that they're going to hold it in Honduras, which has wild crime rates.
I mean, all things considered, like I spent a lot of time in Colombia. Actually, I was there for a few months in like 2007. But there's a lot of places in Colombia that I obviously wasn't in crypto in 2007, but there's a lot of places even in Colombia still today. It's become a much more modernized and safe country, of course, than what it was even a decade ago when I went. But there's still areas that they tell you as a tourist, like if you don't look like you belong here, like me, I'm Caucasian, obviously, I don't look Colombian. Don't walk outside.
You can pronounce Javier though, so I mean, you've got that going for you.
Okay, but they say don't walk outside at night alone in the major cities. Bogota, Medellin, Cartagena, it's the same shit in all of them. And so, I mean, Colombia is not the easiest place. I think at this point though, like when we travel to crypto conferences, like who brings their ledgers? Like, come on.
I know. Yeah, but that just means that if someone can identify you there, they know that your ledger is at home and they can break in.
Yeah, I mean, most of us, I don't want to say everybody, but most of us have pretty solid security precautions, especially if you're already a public figure. Like you wouldn't be able to just come in my house and get my ledger. I guess let's just leave it at that. But
yeah, well, let's talk about China.
Speaking of security threats, smooth transition, my dear.
So China, this is really controversial, is proposing a digital identity system that will be on the blockchain. It's primarily to track users in the metaverse, which like has a variety of meanings depending on what you want to frame that as. But the idea is that it will collect your personal data. It will share it with law enforcement for safety. And people aren't exactly stoked about it.
Yeah. I don't like this at all, as you can tell. As you know, this to me is just another extension of kind of the WorldCoin dilemma. I mean, as soon as you start to digitize biometrics, which is WorldCoin, or digitize identity at the government level, and how that relates to your wallets, I think to me is just, again, I hate to use the same phrase over and over, but it's a slippery slope. I mean, you start with, beautiful digital identity managed by the Chinese Communist Party. Right. And that digital identity must be connected to your wallets. A wallet can't transact in China or something without identity. That's the first step. Oh, okay. Then all of a sudden, now they know all of your wallets, and very quickly can they remove your identity if they needed to. If they didn't like what you were doing, they could remove your identity and you can't transact. Anyways, I don't love it. I mean, I like to see, obviously, governments trying to figure out how to participate. This is the wrong way, in my opinion. Well,
the other thing that's a little bit wild about this, and I mean, this isn't just for my smooth transition, but this is like, oh, maybe there's some good news about digital identity, and maybe we're going to embrace blockchain as a government, and we'll keep you safe. Also, we will totally give you a life sentence for something crypto related. Now, I'm not saying that he shouldn't be penalized in some way. He was running some schemes, bribing people, that kind of thing. These aren't things that we try to purport as part of the crypto universe. But it's also a little bit scary when you're like, oh, I could participate in crypto and I could participate on the blockchain and my government says it's okay, except do they actually say it's okay? Because it looks like the repercussions can be really extreme.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's more to this story, but political persecutions are pretty like shitty no matter what. And it's really hard to get any information from these types of governments to actually make up your mind. This guy used to be a high-level Chinese official. So he was on
Sorry, what's his name?
Yi Zhao. I think. I'm not very good at pronouncing Chinese names. But anyways, I mean, if he was aiding in mining, which has been banned in China was banned for quite some time, and there's fraud and laundering and all this other stuff that he's being accused of, but it's a life sentence. Like, that's pretty insane. And it doesn't sound like there was a long trial like this. I mean, it was like, this to me just sounds like accused, quick trial, jail for life. Like,
that's it. That's what you get now. Okay, so the other thing that's a little bit wild about this is when we think about BRICS, Russia has actually just re-entered into Bitcoin mining, and they are huge proponents of it, and they're looking at loosening the regulations on it. And meanwhile, China is putting people in jail for life because they've been mining. So I wonder how that's going to come up, maybe not at this BRICS summit, but at some upcoming BRICS summits.
See, I don't understand why China has such a concern over mining. Like, if it was over the electrical grid, maybe.
That's the information that I found, is that they're worried because it pulls from the electrical grid and then it causes blackouts or brownouts elsewhere. But also, like, probably you could mitigate that if you regulated it so that it happened in a certain area or something. I don't know.
Or they had to have certain, grid capabilities in that area. Anyways, I'm not really sure I understand why that's still a thing. Like, I get it when they were trying to avoid crypto in general. That kind of get it at the source a little bit. You get rid of miners, then you get rid of a lot of the big money participants that were in China.
Okay.
All in all, okay, fine, Hong Kong. Okay.
Hong Kong. So this is interesting. Is like you're in China mainland, and it's not going great for you because you were secretly Bitcoin mining, and now your identity is tied to your social credit system.
Now you're in jail.
There's a lot of stuff going on there. Meanwhile, Hong Kong has just given a couple of licenses out for actual peer-to-peer trading. So typically Hong Kong has only allowed institutional use, and that has changed. We knew it was going to change. They were announcing that their regulatory framework was going to change, but they've actually given out 2 licenses now, and they're looking at giving out up to 11 more licenses before the end of 2024.
Yeah, I wish there was more licenses being given out, honestly, because I think it would make Hong Kong a bit of a destination for crypto entities, I think. And it acts as a good, I think, middle ground to China for access to that market in a lot of ways. A lot of the people in China that are influential with money have access to Hong Kong. Maybe not everybody, but certain people have the access that they need to participate. So all in all, I think it's great. I wish they had more licenses they were giving out. But again,
ideally they will long term.
Of course. I just think one of the concerns I have for regulation globally is that when regulation comes into play, we have to have a path for the thousands of projects to come into compliance. Otherwise, you're in effect killing them because they're either breaking the law and if you're limiting the amount of licenses, like in Canada, they only gave a month, but they fast tracked all the applications.
That's right.
Right, and anybody that met the criteria would be accepted. So, anyways, hopefully, many of these jurisdictions open that up a little bit more. Like Nigeria had accepted a few applications. We talked about this a week ago or so. Nigeria had accepted a few and rejected the vast majority of them. And it's like, well, you got to have a path for people, meaningfully to come into compliance. Like if the US says we're going to give out 2 licenses this year, I mean, you've essentially killed crypto in the US. Like, yes, you've regulated it for 2 people or 2 entities. So anyways, hopefully
Hong Kong has to be a little more careful, right? They, they're tied to China. They can't just do whatever they want. The other thing that's interesting is Hong Kong has put together a task force to promote Web3 development. So they will have 11 officials, 15 industry participants, and that's part of their Securities and Futures Commission. The idea is that they will be able to determine who should get licensed, why they should get licensed, and how they can broaden this licensing structure in 2024. So kind of neat.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's walk before you run, I guess, right? So Hong Kong's just trying to get a feel for it. I suspect that as regulation becomes more prevalent globally, they might open up more slots or be more willing to offer P2P trading licenses, but we'll see.
All right, let's wrap up with UAE.
Better than government run, like in, I think that was Bali or Indonesia or something, or Malaysia, where the only place you can transact is a government run exchange. That seems weird.
I want to wrap up with UAE because they are also joining BRICS, and that's what I'm hot on today. So the first one is in Abu Dhabi, and they are setting up a $3 million crypto mining farm.
Give me a minute. I got to find this. We skipped over a bunch of crap.
No, we didn't.
There we go. I skipped over a bunch of crap.
There's a 150 megawatt crypto mining farm. It's going to live in Oman. They're working with Green Data City and Phoenix Group. I believe Green Data City was also on their the last news we talked about UAE. So I think they're doing quite a lot right for themselves within that space. But this is kind of a huge deal because mining seemed to be under the radar for a long time, right? It was like kind of controversial. People didn't think it was going anywhere. It's coming up again. People really want to mine. They really want to be the final movers in this. Which
is kind of strange because there's very few proof of work chains left that matter. So it's interesting to see that all of a sudden now we're getting this proliferation of mining once the difficulty levels and so on and the hardware requirements are so much greater than it ever was in the past. But I guess you need big institutional type mining farms to meaningfully scale. So, I mean, this is okay. Oman is an interesting country. I have some friends that live there that were deep in the oil export business. They have very interesting dictatorial government there. And crypto was banned for a long time. So this, again, it's good to see countries that previously weren't embracing now starting to open up and accept the reality that this is going to happen, whether you love it or not. I think we can thank the UAE in many ways for this because they are by far the leader in the Middle East.
Absolutely. And they continue to hand out licenses. Great segue. So we already have Binance, BitGet, Bybit, and a few others who have retail licenses in the UAE, and they just keep handing them out, which is kind of exciting. So there's another company, Komenu, who just was they do custody essentially, and they got their retail license this week. So UAE continues to set the bar for at least in that part of the world. And I don't know, I think it's exciting.
Well, I like it.
Someone is doing something.
Exactly. This is exactly what I'm talking about. If you're going to put regulations in, put a path to getting things approved in a timely fashion without spending hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars on legal. And it seems like that's what's happening in Dubai and the UAE. I really hope, but I suspect it won't quite be the case in America because we have bureaucracy for a reason, the size of the country, the exposure of all the citizens to this stuff. But this is a good example. I like it. Dubai, I'm a big fan of the way that they've been handling this just because they have been fairly forward in terms of getting their poop in a group before everybody else. And they're obviously accepting applicants, which is great. So.
Very exciting. That isn't quite all the way around the world. We didn't get to Nigeria. We didn't get to the colonies. I'll try to post something about them later because it is interesting.
I'll take responsibility for us not getting there because you tried to transition many times and I just wasn't having it. So my fault. Sorry, guys.
I also have to think we have quite a few new viewers who've tuned in a few times on YouTube. And as DGen Roundtable puts it, you can't get rid of DGens. So.
And we're not trying to. We're not trying to get rid of DGens. We're just trying to make sure that DGens have a nice place to hang out. Looks like we lost Kiara, which is great. So just a quick reminder that we are a live show Monday to Friday on all the venues, of course. Like, share, subscribe, help us out. Make sure we can get the word out and keep people abreast of what's going on, both domestically and globally as much as we can in crypto. Really appreciate your support. Today, I can't say go FUD yourself to Kiara, so I will say go FUD yourself to anybody who's listening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.